right. So do you ever just look at a spreadsheet and feel like it's lying to you? Like the numbers are there, but none of them mean anything? Well, welcome back to RevOps or whatever. Today's episode is called Forecasting is Just Vibes, because honestly, sometimes that's all it is. We're predicting the future with spreadsheets and gut feelings, and sometimes an SDR's best guess from 2 months ago that nobody updated. And of course, everybody wants to know still what's the number. So joining me today is my teammate, Michael. He's an analyst, so he ends up being the unlucky soul tasked with turning chaos into reports. Michael, could you tell us about yourself?
Sure. Good to be here, Gabby. Thanks for having me. Hello to everybody. So my background has been a mix of financial planning and analysis, and then also RevOps, kind of strategy, operations. It's been a mix of doing that at a big bank, and then into the startup and software world. And that's kind of what I've been doing for the past 10 years. And to Gabby's point about forecasting, yeah, I agree. It can be very, very loosey-goosey and fun and interesting to say things nicely.
Yeah, so I feel like starting with the basics, even like nobody actually knows what's gonna close. Like you can't, right? Like you're not a wizard, I'm not a wizard. Like, and the other thing is nobody agrees, I feel like, where the number should come from. Is it weighted pipeline? Is it deals who are in a commit stage? So like, I guess what is your thought when someone is like, can you pull a quick forecast? What goes into making a forecast that is actually reliable?
Yeah, so I think I've done it in a few ways, right? Sometimes there are calls that AEs or managers or VPs on the sales side make, right? They say, we're gonna close this much, right? That's based on whatever they're using from a data perspective or intuition. So that's one is calls. The other is going to be our own internally built forecast that typically the RevOps team or the finance team will maintain. And that maybe uses some of the weighting, right, based on pipeline stages or using whatever methodology they have. And then I've also been using forecasting software and tools, right, that is meant to be better than all of this or support all of this, but then also have like the algorithm or whatever intelligence that is meant to pinpoint these things, right? And I think when people ask, okay, well, what's the forecast, right? You kind of maybe ask which one, or instead of providing all three or a mix of them. Honestly, as a way to kind of triangulate, right, and help whoever's hearing it triangulate, because they know that this is difficult. They know that the forecasting misses. They know that there are kind of some big enterprise deals that may influence things. So I think you kind of just give them as much of that information as possible in order to help them get some level of comfort and prepare for what's next, basically.
Realistically, though, which of the three methods of forecasting that you just listed is the right one?
It's the right one. I don't think there's a right one. I don't know. I mean, honestly, probably you want to get to a place where the internal built forecast or the software, the Clarity or whatever have you is good, because it will be hypothetically using more data and using better data and using data in a better way. And if you are able to have those be consistently accurate, then it probably means that you've done a good job of enforcing a lot of clear rules, enforcing good data hygiene, and that takes months to get to. And it also allows you to kind of be able to have comfort in you got to a certain level of rigor around all reps doing things the same or similarly enough. So I think those are the ones that you should want to kind of rely on.
Yeah, I think you brought up a really excellent point too, where because it is such a subjective exercise, I think having all three of those sort of perspectives and then using it to triangulate, like you said, is probably about as close as you're going to get, right? Because you're able to see where the overlaps and the gaps are, right, between all three methods. What's the worst forecast you've ever seen? I like to ask about that. It's not one for me. What's the worst you've ever seen?
I don't remember a specific like quarter or anything like that. But it is the ones that come down to, you know, a person saying, like a rep or manager saying, kind of this is what it's going to be. Because, you know, they have a lot going on. They're maybe not thinking about these things in such terms and thinking about, okay, where is my forecast going to close? They're more, you know, in the weeds on deals. And, you know, I think you can have taken those, right, see what they yield, and then see how far off we are, right? I think you can get a better kind of understanding of how good or bad that is if you try to have them make calls on certain deals, right? And then you can see, okay, well, you know, why exactly was your forecast or your call off? That's because, you know, you were wrong about XYZ deals, right? And that can be difficult or easy depending on the, you know, who you're selling to, who the sellers are. But I think it does come down to those ones typically. Or, you know, I mean, there's really bad internally built forecasts too, I'd say. When I first kind of come into a new role, there's sometimes just things are built wrong. The logic doesn't make sense. Or honestly, it's the logic for the forecast may be fine, but it's ingesting really bad and inconsistent data, right? And then so you could have the, you know, perfect kind of engine or whatever, but if people aren't updating sales stages, close dates, what have you, on a timely basis, then you're screwed anyways. So I said that those are a couple of examples of where things don't go right.
Yeah, I feel like it's like part forecasting, but also like part narrating the drama of what's going on the team, right? Like, one person's got their amount too low, so that when they get closer to close, it blows it out of the water, and then another person's doing it, you know, the opposite. They're predicting it, and it ends up being a lot less than what they thought. And I think you sort of touched on like just the consistency and behavior across the team makes a more predictable forecast.
Yeah, totally. And I think the other thing is also people, when they are providing forecasts, it could be for different purposes, right? You're saying like, what's our Q2 forecast? And like a CEO, CFO may take that approach with one lens and say, okay, well, we're providing this forecast in order to figure out what our burn's going to be, how to properly set expectations for the board. And then the VP of sales may have a very different approach to their forecast where it's like, okay, well, you know, there's just different incentives and motives there, right? And then those things shift and change as well, right? Like, you know, the same thing with the CEO and CFO. One quarter, they want to provide a really good, you know, very, you know, optimistic or kind of rosy forecast potentially. And the next quarter, it may shift, right? And that kind of motivation or that kind of ideation may not make its way down. And then so, you know, that can yield also some challenges.
Where do you see forecasting being used well? Like, where does a well-crafted forecast, where do you see it providing value?
I think like for SaaS, it's going to provide the most value for high volume, kind of faster sales cycle businesses, right? Simply because like if you take the other side of that, which is like the long sales cycle enterprise, right? They're only closing a handful of deals a quarter. That's really hard, right? Because if you miss on one or two of those deals, that can, you know, drastically change your actuals, right? Your actuals are off by 20-25%, and then your forecast is off by 20-25%. It's like, all right, well, you know, that's really hard, right? But I think, you know, on the other side of it, when it's the faster sales cycle, high volume, then each potential deal isn't gonna, you know, screw around with your results as much. And so then if you can get tighter around kind of rep behavior and getting a clearer picture of what's happening with those deals, then you can, I think, get to more predictable outcomes. You know, again, compared to on the enterprise side, right? Like maybe something gets stuck in legal for an extra month, and that's not part of, that's not obscene or that's standard, and that's hard to anticipate in a forecast.
Right. Have you ever been just like given a sheet and said like, this is our forecast, and like none of it made any sense?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's been the case for the new companies I've joined. And some of it makes some sense, but overall, no. I think a lot of it is when I come into the role, it's kind of let me really understand what are the mechanics of this, what are the data, the assumptions that it's using, and then I need to be able to explain what was shown previously, at least, and then explain why I think some things are good or some things need to be changed, right? And then so I can kind of tell that story about like, okay, well, this is why we're changing it, and then we expect this sort of outcome as a result. And for the forecast, then will be different in XYZ way. And oftentimes we run both simultaneously for the first few months or quarter or whatever, and that's fine. Because as long as it doesn't take like, if your forecasting is like built where you have to build it anew every time and like spend hours on it, that's a pain in the ass. So I probably don't maintain that for too long. But yeah, I think that's kind of the approach.
How did you sign yourself up for this pain in the first place? Like what brought you here? How did you get to
yeah, I think the desire for financial independence, paying rent money, wanting to eat at nice restaurants here and there.
Yeah,
that was mostly it.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Yeah. I just before we started the recording, I got a notification on LinkedIn. It was like, millennials are resistant to pay cuts, and I was like, wasting time researching this. Like, aren't we all out here working to like make money? Like,
yeah. So I think that's it. But actually, it's yeah. So I think when I started my career, it was with JP Morgan, and there's like this internship program, and you kind of rotate every year throughout college. And then I was drawn to, I think I ended up in an area of the business that like was supporting sales. And it's kind of effectively revenue operations in a lot of ways, not so much on the technical side, but more on the helping the sales leadership and the strategy side of things. And I kind of just fell into that a little bit, and I had like really good managers and mentors there, so I wanted to continue there. And like so that's like kind of what was my first kind of, I guess, foray into some of this stuff, right? And then afterwards, it was then getting more, when I went to the startup world, is more, okay, like I ran the deal desk, right? And it's like, okay, this is very operations heavy. And like that was a great foundation, I think, because I understood a lot more of the mechanics and the kind of what is required from lead all the way through to close one to get these things done. And then so, okay, then building out a forecast makes a lot more sense because I understand, okay, well, what are the steps that are taking place? As opposed to just, it's all brand new and it's just numbers, right?
Yes, I feel like with your like breadth of experience, what are some of your observations and the differences between forecasting and some of those like larger organizations where the cycle is probably a little bit more time consuming, right? It moves slower, it makes it slightly more predictable. But then again, you do have moments like you mentioned where something gets tied up in legal for an extended period of time, versus on the other hand, the world that we kind of live in now, where we're supporting a lot of startups. It's a very small, scrappy team. What are kind of like the key differences between forecasting for both of those?
Yeah, so I think in the case where, let's say, for example, a larger company, and maybe they have enterprise, some type of higher mid-tier level, mid-market, SMB, right? Like they kind of run the gambit, right? I think the forecasting there in that case, it can be different for each of those teams, right? And rightfully so. So like how we talked about initially, the different types of forecasts, right? It's people, kind of finger in the air, and it's like making a call, right? Versus the internal versus the third party. I think we kind of use a combination of those and lean more heavily on one versus the other, depending on the team, right? So for the example, the enterprise team, we basically would have rely a little more heavily on the call, right? Because there's less data to go through, and like there's but so many that are going to come through. And so in that case, we maybe relied on a call and then also provided a range, right? It's like, okay, well, this is the range of what we think the enterprise team is going to do this quarter, because of this deal or this other deal, right? That's where the variability is, but that's a couple $100,000, right? And so like we're going to just provide that as an overall range. And then for maybe the mid-market and SMB teams, we rely on the other methods, right? The more data-driven, formula-based methods, and then provide kind of calls or forecast that way, and then just add them all up. Compared to, I think, now for the companies that we are working with, these smaller ones that have a faster sales cycle, that are kind of more streamlined in their operations, I think it's easy to just provide a simpler forecast, right? But I think a lot of this, sometimes even like forecasting is new to folks, especially done in a data-driven way.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of it just comes down to, I think, education around what is the benefit, like why even do forecasting at all,
Right.
and then two, what needs to be done in order for it to be accurate, right? So for example, like the data hygiene stuff, and the three is getting reps to kind of buy into it, because I think ultimately this requires a lot of good rep behavior, and they're not really necessarily incentivized to do that, right? It's not, it kind of helps their day-to-day, but not all the time, necessarily. Right. And so I think you need to find ways to surface the data back to them in ways that are useful, right? So like in the past, I've created rep level forecasts, right? And I have my main forecast file that I use, that we use for the overall company or the overall larger teams, but I also created individual rep level ones, right? So they could see, this is what we're spitting out for you, and this is why, and this is going to hopefully help you, right? I kind of identify where you're going to end your quarter, and then I provided that in conjunction with commission calculators to say, okay, so now take what you have from here, put that into your commission calculator, and see what it's going to spit out. Right. In some of these cases, we also had, I was running the commission plans as well. And so it's like we had commission structures that were very beneficial when you hit, above goal, right? And you get paid, a higher percentage on the whole thing all the way down, right? So that was very accretive for them and beneficial to try to beat goal and get to higher tiers. And so it was kind of all of that, working together, I think.
Yeah, one of the things that keeps coming up as sort of a theme on the podcast is the psychology of your users and understanding kind of their thought process and what motivates them. And I think what you just described is probably something that not enough people are doing, where you actually break the forecast up so that it's specific to each rep, and then helping them sort of, like you said, incentivizing it by helping them sort of see input and the result, right? And how they can actually have control over that, and why it's important to keep things updated. I think that's actually a really interesting tactic, and I've honestly not seen anyone doing that, and it means probably not enough people are doing that.
Yeah, and I think, like, when I was earlier in my career, I would be I just like wouldn't get it and frustrated with reps in terms of like, why aren't you just like doing this? Like, it's not that hard, right? And like, we've made it easy, and it's going to get us good data, and like, this is getting in our way if we don't have this, right? But after some time, is like, yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, this is not their job, right? Like, it matters to me because it's my job, but getting an accurate forecast is not their job per se. Like, they have a very clear and hard job, which is closing deals, and they are able to be very like clearly measured on their performance in a way that other roles aren't. And so if you put yourself kind of in their shoes a little more, then it's kind of like, okay, yeah, like, I don't know, I wouldn't carry there probably, right? So then I think it's, okay, well then, given that and understanding that and knowing that, then how do we make it still beneficial and aligned with incentives, right? Because ultimately, if for them to close more business, that gets them paid more, they're going to be happier. That's great. And where does forecasting then fit into that, and how do we make it more real for them?
That's great. Yeah, I think that that's wonderful. And I think that enablement, obviously in what we do, there's a lot of different types of enablement. And I think also just you're like what you just mentioned, like it's not technically their job, and we're expecting kind of, we're expecting them to be invested in something that's more for somebody else. I think just even acknowledging that is part of it too.
Mm-hmm.
What is another sort of measure that you see people being sort of very focused on, but may not be particularly reliable? Obviously, like we're, forecasting is a little bit reading the tea leaves, but what else in our business is sort of similar to that?
Yeah, I think a big one is very pertinent to Scale Matters, right? The company that we work at is kind of this measure of cost per lead, right? That's like a big one, and people will use it to kind of identify ROI on their lead gen channels and to figure out where do they want to invest more, right? And the reason I think it's misleading or not fully useful, especially in isolation, is because the conversion from lead through to deal can be very different by sources, right? So the meaning is that you have a good measure of cost per lead, right? And you think, okay, well, these leads, cost only half as much as, leads from Google cost only half as, no, let me put it a different way. Leads from Facebook cost only half as much as leads from Google, right? So then that says to me, I should be investing a bunch more in Facebook because, it's cheaper to get those folks. But then it turns out that the conversion, right, from lead to deal, right, maybe from Facebook is only 1/10 that of Google, right? So then if you take that into consideration, right, then your cost per, close one op or deal, right, for Google is actually much lower than it is for Facebook, right? So it's kind of really being able to tie in that full funnel and seeing, okay, well, what is the right measure for ROI? I think a lot of times that cost per lead emphasis also comes from just the fact that marketing and sales are distinct and they're distinct roles with distinct responsibilities, and marketing's job is to get leads and sales' role is to close deals. And that, kind of just yields, I think, misaligned incentives ultimately, because for the company, what you care about is getting, the most, sales efficient kind of deals as possible. And that gets masked when I think you're just looking at cost per lead.
Yeah. And I think also one of the things we don't consider is how, especially with marketing, right? Like, how do we even get into their Facebook feed in the first place, right? So marketing doesn't always start when we think it does, right? And so there's also just kind of, it's really so hard to define. And I think that's why everybody goes kind of back and forth about like marketing attribution. Is it real? Is it not real? What's the right way to do it? So there's a lot of that in there too. So that makes total sense. What is I guess in the inverse, what is a really good, consistent metric that people can count on as a good indicator in their business?
Well, I think the ones that have close to the test of time are like LTV to CAC or sales efficiency.
Right.
Those measures, I think it can be difficult to get that data at times and, may create additional work for the finance team. Or if they are able to get it for the whole company, the whole team, or the whole company, right, and the overall go-to-market function, they have a hard time of segmenting it out. Right, and say, okay, well, what's LTV to CAC by customer size, or what's LTV to CAC by industry, what's sales efficiency by those things as well, right? And like, it's great to you need to have that for your overall business, and like that's a great like indicator of health and like helps you figure out where to invest kind of time and resources overall. But you want to be able to ideally take that further because there are inefficiencies in terms of how you're operating by channel or by segment or whatever. And you're just not able to necessarily identify that yet.
Great. That's awesome. So I think we've talked a lot about forecasting, and I try to keep a little bit of good balance in here with some whatever in addition to the RevOps. Typically we talk about tab of the week. Do you have a tab available that is interesting or surprising or just silly or even related to forecasting?
I have a tab that I would not describe as interesting or fun. It's more kind of mildly bane of your existence a little bit.
Oh, I'm ready.
Which is, well, yeah, I don't know if I really want to. I won't pull it up. Do you want me to pull it up? Do you prefer I pull it up?
It's up to you.
Okay. Let me try to think. I guess it doesn't really matter. Yeah. All right. Sure. So basically, for a customer, all right, I'm just going to leave it for now. Right. Basically, for one of our customers, we're just doing a lot of data reconciliation and cleanup for them. And it's just matching IDs across kind of their reporting structure and Salesforce. And so there are issues where data is not, maybe flowing correctly or flowing as expected. And so on a daily basis, we're kind of just pulling down IDs and matching them and seeing where things are wrong. So that's primarily at this point one of our colleagues' work that he's doing. But I think he would feel very similarly about negative sentiment towards this tab.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I spent 3 straight weeks in that tab. Maybe not that one specifically, but the equivalent of that tab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have anything fun pulled up. I try to keep things clean and focused. So yeah, I don't think I have anything fun pulled up, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, that's the problem, right? Like you have to keep things very clean and focused. And I because I'm just like very easily distracted, I also try to keep things very clean and focused.
Mm-hmm.
But then I end up on things like the Slack emoji site because I have to find the exact right emoji.
But then do you have to add this into the Slack instance?
Yeah, so it's actually really cool because you just click on one, right? Some of them are obviously not safe for work, right? But like this is one of my favorites, for example, the Homer disappear one. And if you click on it, it downloads it for you. And then all you have to do is upload it into Slack, and it like does all that work for you.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Can you scroll up a little bit again? Or sorry, the other way. Where was I saw something that really caught my eye. Wow. Yeah, what is this? The very top one, this jewel one. What is this?
I have no idea.
Oh God, this is terrible. I should know better.
I have no idea. Yeah, I was gonna say, if you don't know what it is, I certainly don't know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. I have plenty of imagination. But yeah, okay, cool.
You can like search through them, and then it like recommends random ones. So this is it. This is my tab. This is where the 5 minutes goes when I'm, between getting a Slack message and responding to one. I have to get like the exact emoji to respond with. Some people do GIFs. I feel like I used to like be very like, GIF, but then it like makes the channel kind of hard to read.
Yeah, I used to do that a lot too. I like that. That was like one of like when I like my first start, I was like, wow, we have Slack, cool. And then I like learned the slash Jiffy thing, and then you just type in. It's like, wow, that's amazing.
Is it GIF or GIF?
No, I don't remember. I know I learned it at some point. I don't know. There is one right one.
Say when you say it.
Huh?
What do you like? What comes out when you say it?
I think I say GIF. GIF? I don't know. I can't remember. I don't say these words anymore. I don't know.
I like how you were like, oh, this job has Slack. This is cool. And now I feel like we're all very tired of Slack.
Yeah, although I still like it better than Teams. I don't
Oh,
like.
of course, everything's better than Teams.
Yeah, we have it for one of our clients for Teams, and I've Teams has grown on me a little bit. Like it's fine, it's usable, I can use it, but it's not a pleasant experience. No.
No, I feel like I definitely prefer Slack, but I feel like sometimes it's like, just be quiet, Slack. Just be quiet for like an hour and 45 minutes. I need to be able to focus on this.
That's true.
And then, like, I feel like it sort of trained people to like expect a quick response.
And
And then you start to worry, like, am I ever going to get an answer? What's happening? And
you can find a way to put an auto respond on. And find an emoji that's like be back in 5 minutes. One of those.
And like, I also like look for people's indicator to see if they're online to like try to message them. And I was looking for somebody this morning, and our other teammate was like, it's never gonna look like they're online. Like they're literally hiding their status. You're not waiting for the green light to come on to send a message because they're just hiding. That's actually, I get that. They're protecting their peace.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because like maybe you didn't need to ask them.
Yeah, I guess if it wasn't where I was like, I'm just gonna send it. I guess it was fine. Yeah, they got me. They got me with the psychological tricks that time.
Yeah, I have gotten better at scheduling sends. Like for like when people like in different time zones. In the morning for us, and say, all right, let me schedule this because I feel I feel rude. It is rude. So yeah,
it's not their fault that I'm working at 2 a.m. And it's funny because like I talked to Sean about the same thing. Like I saw his little light on one day, and I was like, he's definitely not online. But I was like literally 2 o'clock in the morning, like typing up like 6 different Slacks and then like scheduling them for like, is 9:30 too early? I'm thinking, should I send it exactly at 9? Like what's too early? And then you like overthink when it sends. Well, I do. I don't know.
I've been there. Yeah, I need to get that type of clutter out. Yeah.
Well, I guess at the end of the day, forecasting it's like a team sport, but mainly it's a like chaotic, improvised game. Nobody knows the rules. Everybody's changing positions. Scoreboard's in a different language. Or I guess it can be, right? But not if you're doing it right. If you're doing it right, I think this comes up kind of a lot too. It's like make sure we're all speaking the same language. And that's where you can find success. I also, like I said, I really liked your idea of having multiple different forecasts and using that to sort of, determine really sort of what's realistic and what's not.
Yeah.
And just kind of like understanding the reason why you're doing it as well, because this number means one thing and this one means a different one, right? They're both forecasts and they're both accurate, but it's all depends on what it is that you're looking for. So I think those are really insightful points that you made. So thank you for joining me. Typically what I do is I thank a fake sponsor. And so I think today I'm going to thank the opportunity push count field, because if you are going to miss your number, you then at least can track how many times you lied to yourself about it first, right? Which is key for forecasting.
Yeah. I thought you were going to bust out like something like luxury, like, watch brand or something. Something crazy.
No, it's always like something very, very Salesforce specific.
Yeah.
It's always very silly. I feel like that should be in the forecast though, like the push count field. It's like, okay, well, you felt really strongly about this last quarter too, right? Yeah. Like clearly it's pushed out.
Yeah, definitely. I did it when I built my first one. A big thing for I built my own internal weighting, and it's based on age and stage. So yeah, it's like if you've been in this stage for a long time, you're going to be a low probability. Yeah.
Okay, here's another question. I know we're like kind of at the end here, but I want to finish on a good note. Is the first stage ever a pipeline stage?
I don't know. Sure, if you want it to be. I don't know. You tell me. It depends on how you define things, I guess. I mean, for us, right, like our recommended model is what we call MOPS, right, meetings on
Right.
opportunities. And so, like the first stage is you have a meeting set, the initial qualification or discovery meeting, right? And then so in that case, it's that's not a pipeline stage, right? It's not been qualified. So I think everyone should use that method. And then so the answer would be no. But yeah. I mean, we're in 2025. People can do whatever the hell they want, I guess. And that's why they have so much customization and RevOps folks to support it.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I know that talking about forecasting is something you're probably tired of doing because it's a big part of what you do every day. So I appreciate you sharing your insights with everyone. And then I guess for our listeners, because that's a thing now. Thank you for listening to RevOps or whatever. Maybe subscribe, right? Like that's the thing people ask for, right? So subscribe. If you would like to be on the podcast, let me know. But thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time, I guess, unless the forecast says otherwise.
Well, thanks, Gabby.
Thank you. Bye.